That Classic NBA podcast. I am Jason, and with me, as usual, is Rich. Hello, Rich.
Hello.
How are things?
Things are good. Enjoying the playoffs. It's been a crazy playoff season. Crazy playoff season. And actually, as of this recording, we're recording this the night after we almost had a new addition to this thing that we were going to talk about here. We are obviously talking about playoff buzzer beaters, and I was keenly watching the Nets Bucks series and saying, or the Game 7, and thinking, oh man, this looks like the type of game where we'd have a buzzer beater. We got real close. We got a foot and about 1.1 second away from adding a new entry to this series, but it ended up not happening. But what a playoffs it's been so far.
Yeah, some exciting series going on. Yeah, maybe we will add to this list after we, as the playoffs advance. We're nearly through the second round as we're recording this. But yeah, so we decided to dig into the history of NBA buzzer beaters a little bit. There's a great list at basketballreference.com. We'll, of course, include the link to that in the show notes for those to peruse. But we're going to focus on ones that ended up clinching a playoff series. So we're going to split this up into two parts. We're going to talk about the early rounds here, get into the later rounds in our part two. But so I think this will be a fun topic, some exciting things. I mean, it's hard to imagine anything in sports beating a buzzer beating playoff series win. I mean, there's I guess it can happen in other sports, game winning home run or last second touchdown or whatever. But there's obviously we are the NBA fans. That's the sport that we love the most, and it's really hard to beat just the energy that comes from the players and the crowd and everybody when that happens.
Yeah, there's something special about a playoff buzzer beater that I think beats even like a walk-off home run or whatever, and those are great. I mean, those are I've been in the building for walk-off playoff home or like baseball, not necessarily World Series, but some playoff walk-off hits or walk-off home runs or whatever. And it's a pretty incredible thing. It's pretty awesome to be, but there is something, like you said, about that entire arena, just everybody 100% focused on one player. It's usually like a one-on-one thing. It's usually one guy coming down to do something, or it's usually, there's just something special about the NBA playoff buzzer beaters. I don't know why. It probably is my bias towards basketball, but it's just, I don't know. There's just something incredible about them. Yeah,
well, it can come from anywhere, where, in baseball, it's going to be, the hitter is going to either do it or not do it,
Right, exactly.
And in football, it's, the quarterback's going to be involved for the, 95% of the time. But, basketball, like anybody, Derrick McKee.
We'll talk about Derrick McKee here in a minute. Yes, even Derrick McKee. Yeah,
exactly. So, I mean, this is, it's pretty incredible, like we said. So, shall we dive into it?
Let's do it.
All right. So, the first one we'll talk about, Derrick McKey. This is May 5th.
Is that why you mentioned him? What about? Oh, man, you're good. You're good at this. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Rich. I appreciate that. We've had some practice on this. May 5th, 1989, a playoff series between the Houston Rockets and the Seattle Supersonics. You remember them? Seattle Supersonics?
I do. I hope to maybe remember them again sometime soon. But I do remember the Seattle Supersonics. Yeah, this is the weird, can you believe there was a period like late 80s, early 90s, pre-Kemp and Payton Sonics that are they were okay too. You know what I mean? You think it's they saved this franchise, and it's they're good. They're just then they would get Kemp and Payton, and they'd be really, really good.
Right. Yeah. They had a little dip in the mid 80s, but this was definitely a solid team with some fun playoff things. The Sonics in 89, they're 47-35, key players outside of McKee. They got Dale Ellis. They got Michael Cage, who the Clippers were we don't really like you. So we don't like good players. We're just going to give you the Sonics. Nate McMillan, Xavier McDaniel, Alton Lister, so some good players, some fun players there. And like I said, right on the cusp of getting Gary Payton and Sean Kemp, and and then becoming kind of the really well known teams they had in the 90s. But this is Game 4 of the series. Evenly matched teams. The Rockets 45-37, similar record, similar quality team. They have Hakeem Olajuwon, obviously superstar, surrounded by some solid but not necessarily spectacular players. I mean, the other best players probably Otis Thorpe. They do have Sleepy Floyd, who's known for some playoff heroics, getting a bit older there. Mike Woodson. I forgot Mike Woodson kind of ended up having a late career, stint with the Rockets. And then a player I was not familiar with, Buck Johnson. And this, you may or may not realize that this is not, of course, Magic Johnson, whose nickname is also Buck. He did not spend 1 year with the Houston Rockets and decided to go by his other nickname. Yeah. That may be a surprise to you, Rich.
A little bit. Yeah. When I saw Buck Johnson, I'm like, oh, he means Magic Johnson, of course. But
right,
no, that is not the case. So.
Right. Yes, Alfonso Buck Johnson Jr. He played 7 seasons in the NBA with the Rockets and the Bulls. He also played 13 additional years across the world. Maccabi Tel Aviv, the Birmingham Magicians, the Wichita Falls Texans, kind of a wide range of teams across the world. But yeah, he had quite the storied career. Played at Alabama. Not a whole lot else here, but in terms of we did not dig too deeply into Alfonso Johnson Jr., but just certainly a noteworthy name here.
Absolutely, and this is an era of the Rockets that we have done a show about probably a few years ago at this point, where right. People like similarly how people kind of forget the Sonics were like pretty good before Kemp and Payton. People also forget that like the Rockets were in turmoil in like certain Hakeem eras. They're still kind of they're a little kind of riding the high of making the finals, a few years prior, and they're still kind of riding the high of, hey, this Hakeem guy, he's really great. He's got everything together. It's going to come in another year or so where people are going to say, and we found exact like clips and quotes and all this sort of stuff of like, hey, I don't know if this guy's the real deal. I don't know if this guy can lead us to titles. And Hakeem is kind of like, hey, I don't know if I want to be here. This town kind of sucks, or I'm kind of done. And all of it gets washed away, obviously, in 94 and 95 when he win those back-to-back titles. And then it's like, oh, Hakeem and Houston, and it was da-da-da. And it is kind of funny that, yeah, this weird period where, like, things are not going great. Like, they're still doing okay, but there is a lot of questions of, is this the guy that is going to lead us to NBA Finals? Is this the guy that's going to be, the man for our team? And Hakeem, similarly on his side, thinking, hey, is this where I want to spend the rest of my career in Houston playing for the Rockets? And, like, yeah, it would become very obvious by 94, 95 that he would be a legend in that team and that it would all work out. But it is funny that there is that time period, and we're not there just yet in 1989, but we're approaching it pretty soon, where it looks like there's a breakup about to happen between Hakeem and Houston.
Sure. Yeah. Like I said, they were definitely kind of perennially disappointing. I mean, yeah, they had some solid seasons. They had some, kind of disappointing seasons, but they, having a great player like Hakeem Olajuwon, there's kind of an expectation, hey, you're going to be a 50-plus win team every season if you put anything decent around him, and they were kind of not really doing that. And obviously, things would get settled later, but as you mentioned, it got very close to them kind of just, moving away from Hakeem and just starting over, and obviously that would have been a bad decision. So luckily they didn't do that. But back to the Sonics and Derrick McKey in particular, you think of Derrick McKey and you probably think like, oh, yeah, he was defensive specialist, really great, solid player for the Pacers in the mid to late 90s. But yeah, he actually he had some scoring chops early on in his career. This season, he averaged 15.9 points per game, which was the most he ever averaged in the league. He'd been in the league a couple years, drafted by the Sonics, 9th overall pick in the 87 draft, ahead of guys like Reggie Miller, Horace Grant, Reggie Lewis. So, ended up having a solid career. Probably he would have rather had Reggie Miller than Derrick McKey.
Sure.
But yeah, definitely, had a good, solid, long career. And yeah, in this game, the Sonics actually, they were up by 9. 6 minutes to go, but the Rockets, came charging back. By the way, this is game 4 of the series. So the Rockets on the brink of elimination. The Sonics are up 2-1. And then, 7 seconds left. Sleepy Floyd finds Mike Woodson. Mike Woodson at the top of the key. Mike Woodson, he's about to have his moment. He grabs the ball. He launches the three.
He's open.
And then, it's nothing. Literally nothing. But Purvis Short's there. Purvis Short, grabs the rebound, then sends the pass wide open. Sleepy Floyd hits a three to tie the game with just 1 second remaining. Sleepy Floyd doing it again in the playoffs, obviously known for like that incredible performance against the Lakers just a few years later, breaking playoff quarter scoring records and scoring more than 50 in a playoff game against the Lakers. Sleepy Floyd delivering in the clutch. You think clutch, you think Sleepy.
Absolutely. Yeah. The name does not fit the Or maybe it does. Maybe he's just like he's always like, whatever, man. What's the game? 1 second left. I'll hit the shot. It's fine. Whatever.
He wakes up when it's playoff time.
Right. Or he wants to go to bed, so he's just like, let's just end this game, guys.
Right.
Let's end this game. Let's end this series. I'm sleepy. I want to go to bed. I'm just gonna hit the shot if you guys need to. But this is it's an interesting play because you have Sleepy Floyd, who seems like the type of guy, and it's clear that Seattle knows that Sleepy Floyd is a good clutch player, so they kind of blitz him. They're like, no, do not let Sleepy Floyd get a shot. Leaving Mike Woodson, I mean, so open. It's unbelievable how open Mike Woodson is on this play. And he, like you said, he's like, oh, baby, Mike, it's our time. He launches it, and my man is short by like 5 feet. It's not even, it's not good. It's not good at all. But thankfully, Purvis Short, who was, blitzing, the baseline, comes up, grabs it, right place, right time, grabs the air ball, sends it to Sleepy Floyd. Sleepy hits the three. Pandemonium. It's an incredible moment here for Sleepy Floyd, who was a really good three-point shooter as well in these early days. He's 6th in the NBA, 37.3% from three in 1989. And in his career, obviously the attempts are not going to be very high because it is, the NBA and at this era and the era that he played. Only 1.7 3-point attempts per game, but 32.4% overall. But that 1989 really stands. I mean, 37.3 on 3.6. I mean, that's,
I should clarify. The attempts were 6th in the NBA.
Oh, I'm sorry.
3.6 attempts. It was the 6th in the NBA, which just illustrates, of course, how much the league has changed. But that's obviously 38%. That's I didn't look up where that ranked in the league, but that's certainly a very high percentage. For that time, that's a great percentage even today. So
that's a great percentage for that amount of shots getting put up, especially in 1989 for sure. So that's cool. Yeah, that's cool. We always talk about how it's funny how the 3-point, I mean, people do not remember how long it took like people to actually start hitting 3-pointers, and it literally took them like moving the line up and saying, okay, here you go, and then people did it, and then they moved the line back, and everybody was like, oh yeah, that's stupid, let's not do that anymore. And then it took like another 10 years until people started hitting threes. It's pretty remarkable how the 3-point shot evolved in the NBA. But Sleepy Floyd did it. 1 second remaining. I don't know why this is on our list because that's not a buzzer beater, Jason, so I don't know. I don't know how Derrick McKey gets involved in this, but all right, go ahead.
Right. Well, I guess our good friend Nate McMillan, coach of America's team right now, he inbounded the ball and he found Derrick McKey on the block, and McKey just rises up, puts the ball into the and puts it right into the basket. Like everyone was really drawn to Dale Ellis, was thinking like, oh yeah, Dale Ellis, he's their go-to guy. He's going to take the shot. Akeem even is going out to chase him, and they pretty much leave the interior alone. And then, he just, McKee just, insane athleticism, just jumps and gets the ball and just perfect timing. Absolutely incredible. And then right there, just, a really understated reaction, basically just slaps his hands together once and that's it. Seattle runs into the tunnel, on to the second round. All good, exciting things, and they're going to take on the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm sure it's going to to go really well for them.
They're going to definitely do well in that series, I think, for sure.
Right. I'm not even going to bother looking it up because I'm sure they advanced further. You probably even made the finals.
Well, the '89 Lakers didn't have Magic, as we preface there. As it took a 1 year soaring into Houston. So that's
it's really weird that Buck Johnson was just kind of on the bench for the Rockets. Like maybe you could have used him in the game. I don't know. That seems like a weird decision. But maybe go with Mike Woodson. Why not?
Absolutely, yeah. But it's a really cool play here that McKee does. It's one of the Nate McMillan smartly realizes, hey, we got 1 second here. Like if I inbound it to Dale Ellis, like that might not go well. But Houston obviously thinking, oh man, well Dale Ellis is going to get this ball and launch a shot immediately. Sure. And very smart by Seattle. It feels like the type of play that they would do in practice every so often. It'd just be like, hey, what I'm going to do is from the midcourt, I'm going to throw it near the basket. You're going to jump and try to put it in. And they do it. And it's awesome. And it's like a legit 1 second play. You know what I mean? Not really. And is it Derek? The Derek Fisher. We'll talk about that. I'm sure. That one. But like this one is legit. Like, this gets done in one. I mean, from the time it's launched in the air to the time Derek McKee touches it, it's only about a second and a half or something like that. So it's really cool. Yeah. And just awesome play by McKee, and it just totally catches Houston off guard. And Seattle moves on to the next round. So. Yeah.
And then Houston, they would. Well, they would. This was their second straight exit in the first round. That would happen 4 years in a row. They missed the playoffs in '92. Then finally, the things would turn around once they hired Rudy Tomjanovich and upgraded the roster a little bit. But yeah, this was definitely, Houston was kind of stuck in no man's land after, having so much promise with Samson and Olajuwon making the 86 finals and all that good stuff. But like I said, things would eventually turn around for them, but rough period for Rockets. But I mean, not that making the playoffs is certainly fine, but given what you have in Akeem, you feel like should have done more.
All right, ready for our next buzzer beater here?
I am totally ready. I'm excited about this. I'm sure it happened like way later. I'm sure there's like a long period of time between buzzer beaters.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, because Derrick McKey, May 5th, 1989. This one, you have to wait all the way to 2 more days until May 7th, 1989, which is a long time. I mean, 48 hours that's a lot can happen in 48 hours. Yeah, absolutely. And this man is Michael Jordan, and he plays for the Chicago Bulls, and this is the Eastern Conference first round.
I believe it's pronounced Jordan.
Michael Jordan. Yeah.
Right. Yes, I believe that's correct.
Yes. Yeah. He's Rodrigo Bobois. Father, I believe, is
I believe so. Yes,
right. Famed Dallas Maverick, Rodrigo Bobois.
Sure,
I believe it's his father, Michael Jordan. But 1989, 2 days after Derrick McKey, Eastern Conference first round, Game 5. Yeah, this is the one. This is the one we're talking about here. You probably know what we're doing here. Third seeded Cavaliers. They finished the season 57-25, setting a franchise high and tied for the second best record in the NBA. The Cavaliers have 3 All-Stars this year: Mark Price, Brad Daugherty, and Larry Nance, all selected to the 1989 NBA All-Star Game. They're set to do battle with the 6th-seeded Chicago Bulls in the first round. I mean, obviously Cavaliers the higher seed. This should go well. This is the first round, as we mentioned in 1989 with the Game 4. Again, these are 5-game rounds, so this is the Game 5, the pivotal game, the decider game of the first round. The Bulls, they finished 5th in the Central with a 47-35 record. Michael Jordan leads the league in scoring at 32.5 points per game. He is, of course, selected to the 1989 All-Star Game, which makes sense. He would then finish 2nd in MVP voting. He had won the award the year prior, but this year he couldn't take it away from, I don't want to name the name because it ruins one of our earlier jokes that we made, so we'll just continue to move on and act like we didn't do that. It's a guy named Irvin Johnson, I think the future Milwaukee Buck big man.
That makes sense. Yeah,
it's that guy. Reasonable. I believe it's that Irvin Johnson, not the
Irvin Johnson,
not the other Irvin Johnson. Anyway, this series, playoff rematch of last season's Eastern Conference first round series, in which you guessed it, yes, the Bulls won the best of 5 series 3-2. The Cavaliers, though, they are ready this year. They're not going to let that happen again. They sweep the regular season games against the Bulls 6-0, including, and this it's fresh in their mind, a 90-84 victory in the final regular season game of the year, and they rest 4 of their best players: Ron Harper, Mark Price, Brad Daugherty, and Larry Nance in that game. They're not even trying to win, and they still beat this Bulls team. So, I mean, come on.
Yeah, they've got it. Yeah, they've got this. Yeah,
this is done. Problem. This is over. So, the series is tied 2-2. You need to win a Game 5 here to advance in the series. The pivotal game it's close most of the game, and even more so towards the end of the game, as there's 6 lead changes in the final few minutes of regulation. This, unfortunately forgotten in this moment, is that Craig Ehlo, Cavaliers guard Craig Ehlo, he gives his squad the 199 lead with 3 seconds left, goes bam, my moment in the sun, baby. Everybody will remember the name Craig Ehlo for putting Michael Jordan and the Bulls away. But no, as you know Craig Ehlo from another thing. Jordan takes the inbound pass, creates space over Ehlo, hits it. The iconic foul line jumper at the buzzer. 101-100 Bulls. Michael Jordan pumps his fist. He's happy. Guys are screaming. It's incredible. Craig Ehlo, in another great moment, unfortunately, he falls to the floor. He just, his body loses all ability to stand. It's just it's so heartbreaking. And God, it's played 9 trillion times over and over and over again, but it's just Craig Ehlo being like, oh, come on. I just did it. I just hit the shot. What the hell? Why did this guy do this? And it's over. Jordan finishes the game with 44 points on 17 of 32 shooting. Bulls coach Doug Collins, who would be fired, by the way, pretty soon after this. But hey, you know what? He has his moment in the sun here. So, which we'll talk about in a minute. It's actually pretty interesting how this was shot production-wise. But Bulls coach Doug Collins, when asked what the play was, he said the play was, quote, that was the get the ball to Michael and everybody get the expletive out of the way. So get the fuck out of the way. Is what Doug was saying there, which is not a bad play for the 1989 Chicago Bulls. So just
it was a play they ran a lot.
Yes,
so.
They did it a lot during the last the subsequent few years. But especially in '89 and '88, they said, you know what? The rest of you guys are not very good, so why don't you give the ball to Michael Jordan and walk away? So
honestly, I feel like they maybe should have given it to Brad Sellers, but that's just me.
Right. Rory Sparrow probably should have got a touch or two. So
maybe that would have been good.
But that did not happen anyway. So the Bulls, of course, they win this series. They go on to the East Finals, where they are eliminated by the Detroit Pistons in 6 games. But the lasting image of this moment is obviously Jordan's, crazy celebration here, the leap into the air as Ehlo falls to the ground in despair. The scene has become a part of, we all know this. You can close your eyes and you've seen that, you know exactly how it looks and exactly what's going on. But what's weird, though, is it was not shown to viewers as part of the televised game. It was on a CBS broadcast with Dick Stockton and Hubie Brown. I love the idea that Hubie Brown is still kicking all these years later. He's the CBS guy then. He's still doing games to this day. I love Hubie Brown. But anyway, CBS never aired this replay during the game telecast, nor was Jordan's celebration caught by the sideline press box camera used for most of the action. Instead, when this thing happens, fans see, which is another thing that is shown in the clip as well, fans see the celebration of Doug Collins running onto the court, just looking for somebody to hug. Like Doug Collins just runs on the court. He's just running around aimlessly, just like, somebody hug me. This is amazing. This is incredible. Then you see, Phil Jackson in some symbolism here. Doug Collins kind of running past, Phil Jackson to celebrate with his team as Phil's about to go and take his job here in a few minutes.
Right. That's fine. Yeah. But, I have something I'd like to mention here.
Yeah.
So it's very CBS to focus on the coach rather than the player.
Of course, yes. Especially when it's Michael freaking Jordan. What are you doing?
Right. That's very CBS to do that. We've talked about some of the CBS broadcasts, more like 70s and early 80s, but very, very much to do that. And granted, like what Collins was doing was also like pretty exciting, interesting. Like in the moment, you focus on Michael Jordan, obviously in retrospect, but in the moment, I can at least see. Like, oh wow, what Doug Collins was doing was unusual. What Jordan was doing was unusual. So, what Collins was doing was worth noting, but yes, not ahead of what Michael Jordan was doing.
No, and that you're right. That was obviously definitely a CBS thing. Is CBS loved coaches and loved focusing on that aspect of the game, which I sometimes was fine. It was fine in like the early 80s when like you were still trying to establish these stars, but I think by this point, like maybe just focus on Michael Jordan. He's like been an MVP. He's like already like an iconic star. Like, I don't know, maybe put the camera on Michael Jordan. I don't know. That's just me. But yeah, insanely that original shot that is now so iconic and used everywhere was not even shown on the normal broadcast. So pretty good stuff there. But as we said, the 1989 playoffs, Jordan averages 34.8 points per game, 7.6 assists, 7 rebounds, and 2 steals. 2.5 steals per game in 17 games. Of course, it's not good enough. They lose to the Detroit Pistons in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Bulls decide, let's try something different here. This isn't working with Doug Collins. They promote his assistant, Phil Jackson, to head coach following the season. They do another 7-game series loss, or anher loss in the Eastern Conference Finals to the Pistons, and then finally break through in 1991 and win their first NBA championship. The Cavs, the poor Cavs. So this would... So stab them in the heart a little bit. They would fall to 42-40 the following season, still limp into the playoffs. The next year they would fall below 500. But we did a series about this, or we talked about this Cavaliers team on an episode about a year or so ago, is that after this brief period where it feels like, oh man, this is done. These Cavs are this is over with this unit. This crew's not going to happen. They do return to the playoffs and they win back-to-back 50-game seasons in 92 and 93. But well, unfortunately, we're not done with them in this multiple part series here. We'll unfortunately get to that later. I hate to say it, Cavs fans, but we will check in with you guys in a few years in the Eastern Conference semifinals. So
for sure,
sorry,
sure, yeah.
It's the same guy, it's the same player, same team. It's awful. It's awful.
Yeah, hey,
it's Michael. No? It's Michael crushing you again. So.
Mikael Jordan. He was pretty good.
Yeah, particularly against the Cavs. Yeah, that's sorry,
yeah.
Guys. Hey, LeBron. Yeah, you guys came back from 3-1. Stop your complaining.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
But anyway, 1989 playoffs. Those wild.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's some good stuff. Absolutely. Um, so next we move on to more recent times, and we're gonna fast forward to 2014, the Western Conference first round, and it is going to be the Trailblazers and our good friends, the Houston Rockets. I'm sure, yeah, things are going to go better for the Houston Rockets this time. They're not going to get beaten again.
No.
I mean, come on, no, they're not going to be cursed. No, it is the 3-seeded Blazers versus. I'm sorry, no, I'm looking at the wrong notes here. What was the seed here? Let's go back real quick. Sorry, we can edit this out.
Yeah.
All right, the 5-seeded Blazers versus the 4-seeded Rockets. We are in Game 6, a tightly contested series between the two teams. The Blazers' top players, we got a young Damian Lillard, who we'll be talking more about here, is involved in some pretty important playoff moments. We still have LaMarcus Aldridge. We got Nicholas Batum. We got Wes Matthews. We got Robin Lopez. We got Mo Williams making an appearance there. I kind of forgot about the Mo Williams Blazers experience. Meanwhile, on the Rockets, we've got James Harden and Dwight Howard. What a pair of personalities that was for the Rockets. We also got Chandler Parsons. Remember him?
I do remember Chandler Parsons.
Yeah. We've got.
I think he's still getting paid like $20 million a year, right? Like,
probably,
is that finally done? Like, because there was the weird period where everybody was like, we need to pay Chandler Parsons a lot of money, and he's like, hey, I'm hurt, and then someone was like, hey, you know what? We're still gonna pay Chandler Parsons. Like, he's like, hey, I can't really play, and they're like, yeah, that's fine. Here, you want a new contract? And he's like, I really haven't even played in the last contract, but sure. Like,
Hey,
good for go get that paper, man. Get that paper.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got Omer Ashik, we've got Patrick Beverly, we got Jeremy Lin coming.
Yeah, this is during the Rockets period of the like the bubble contracts, or what was the term that was used? Oh shit, I forgot what it was called, because like Jeremy Lin and Omer Ashik were paid like $2 million their first year, like $2 million the second year, and then like $19 million in the third year of the contract. It was some weird thing that Daryl Morey was doing at this time, which it ended up it got them some pretty good players, but I don't know if it ended up working in the long term. So.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yes. So back to Damian Lillard, of course. This is May 2nd, 2014. And, Lillard, not really like super, touted, coming in college. He played for Weber State in Utah, member of the Big Sky Conference. Everyone loves the Big Sky Conference, of course. But did really well in college, skipped a senior year, entered the NBA draft. He was drafted 6th overall, and pretty much was great. From the beginning, was only the 4th unanimous Rookie of the Year after Blake Griffin, David Robinson, and Ralph Sampson. Also joined Oscar Robertson and Allen Iverson, the only rookies in NBA history to have 1,500 points and 500 assists for a season. And then really, his second year, which is what we're here, 2014, made his first All-Star game, helped Portland finish with 54 wins, their best record since 2009. And Portland they've had a lot of unfortunate luck in their franchise history, but they had just kind of come off an era that was expected to be centered by Brandon Roy and Greg Oden as possibly a really strong championship level era. And then unfortunately injuries felled both those guys, but they were able to kind of, they had some good fortune with getting Lillard where they got him. And then, were able to tally, a really good run over the last, 6-7 years now. So, yes. And then in the meantime, again, Houston Rockets, Dwight Howard was his first season with the team, the shocking people leaving Los Angeles, coming to the Rockets. Obviously, expectations were high, and despite winning 54 games, obviously really good record. Harden and Dwight didn't really seem to gel. The coach was Kevin McHale, which
probably didn't help matters that much.
Yes, and and this is really you look back at this, a really all-time great series. I mean, the margins here. Game 1 is 2 points. Game 2 is 7 points. Game 3 is 5 points. Game 4 is 3 points, and then Game 5 is 10 points. The only margin that's double digits. These are all really close games. There's 3 overtimes in this series, which is pretty incredible. And the Trailblazers had just had a really as a franchise that had emotional loss. Dr. Jack Ramsey, of course, the former coach, led them to the 1977 championship. He died just days prior to the pivotal Game 6. So a lot of just emotions, I'm sure, with the franchise and the crowd and everything. And we're the Blazers are down by 2, 9/10 of a second left, and Lillard just gets the inbounds pass and very coolly hits the buzzer-beating 3, winning the series 4-2. The shot becomes known by Blazers fans as .9 with 0.9 seconds left. The first franchise playoff series win in 14 years, which is kind of surprising because again the Blazers have generally been a good franchise.
Yeah, they were good most of that time.
Yeah,
right,
they were
exactly. Pretty good a lot of that time. And just not good enough to win a. Yeah, that boggled my mind when I saw that stat. I was like, really? And I was like, I got to double check. And I'm like, no shit, that's true. Like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean that's pretty just pretty shocking right there. So and then it really cements his reputation for just Damian Lillard being a big shot player, a guy who just comes up in the big moments and really delivers at the big time. And and then right after the play, the Motor Center's going crazy. Everyone's excited. He actually grabs the PA mic and yells "Rip City." Just a really incredible moment of just engaging the crowd and the energy. It's just definitely some exciting stuff. And then Lillard's quote afterwards, like, "Hey, that's definitely the biggest shot of my life." And then low pause so far. So. Well, we'll see. Maybe you'll have a bigger one. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll find out. That seems awfully presumptuous, Damien.
Yeah,
but,
right. Yeah.
I mean, I guess on April 23rd, 2019, you may have done a very similar thing here as we move on to the Western Conference first round. The 3rd seed versus the 6th seed. Your 2019 Blazers versus your 2019 Thunder. And gosh darn it, Damian Lillard was right. He would do it again here. Dame Time Part 2, April 2019, as we said, again, Western Conference first round. This one is even more of a franchise-altering play. Not as much for the Blazers, but God, so much so for the Oklahoma City Thunder. This seems like so long ago, given what's happened to the Thunder since then. But we'll kind of discuss how this pretty much ended the dynasty or pseudo dynasty, or ended this run, or whatever you want to say about it. But this is an absolute franchise-altering play by Damian Lillard here. So. In 2019, Lillard and the Blazers seemed determined to kind of work things through and kind of get through. They had made 5 straight playoffs by 2019, but they only reached the semifinals twice and never yet reached the conference semifinals. So they're looking this year to kind of, okay, let's get this thing under control. Let's go. Lillard, his running mate CJ McCollum are still there. They're still good. What's cool about this year, though, the Blazers have one of the best offenses in the league. They're 3rd in offensive rating as well, so they really kind of overpower. They really kind of put a charge into the offense and thinking, okay, that's going to lead us through here. And they're matched up in the first round with the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is a very different Thunder team than years past. So obviously, Kevin Durant a few years prior had left for Golden State. The Thunder and Russell Westbrook did the solo star thing, and it didn't quite work. I mean, hey, Russell Westbrook won an MVP, and it was fun, and he got triple doubles and all that sort of stuff. But the team realized, okay, we're probably not going to win with Reggie Jackson and Russell Westbrook as our 2 best players. So they build a super team, kind of. In 2018, the team brings both Paul George and Carmelo Anthony in to join an already pretty talented team featuring Russell Westbrook, Steven Adams, Andre Roberson, and some other solid rotation pieces. Needless to say, the Carmelo Anthony and Thunder thing did not work very well. They were eliminated in the first round by the Utah Jazz. In 2019, they decide, okay, we're done with the Carmelo thing. That's done, but they decide, hey, we got a good thing here in Paul George, Russell Westbrook, and the rest of this team, and they do that. Russell Westbrook has a great year. He averages a triple-double. Paul George scores 28 points per game that season. Dennis Schroeder, Steven Adams, Jeremy Grant round out a really talented and still pretty young Thunder team as well that looks to get out of the first round. And then, well, this game happens. So the Blazers win the first 3 games of the series. Oklahoma City wins Game 3. The Blazers win Game 4. Then Lillard, in Game 5, sticks a dagger in their hearts. In Game 5 of the 2019 Western Conference Finals, he hits a game-winning three-pointer at the buzzer from 36 feet away.
Yeah.
Paul George guards him as good as you could possibly. I mean, he's guarding him from basically half court, thinking, all right, no, this guy's not making a 35-plus foot three-pointer over me. I'm not letting it happen. And goddamn it still happened because Paul George tries like hell to do it. Damian Lillard launches the shot at about 1.4 seconds, and it goes in. The second series clinching shot of Damian Lillard's career. Damian Lillard waves goodbye to the Thunder bench after nailing the shot, which is just an awesome moment. It's so good. Cool. Little did he know, like literally, like all those, most of those guys would, like, quite literally be gone from the team pretty quickly. Right. Yeah, the wave is incredible. The Thunder talked a lot of shit. We'll talk about it. They talked shit even after the series as well. So this felt a little special for Lillard and the Blazers, but anyway, Lillard does that. He waves to the crowd. Then he gets promptly mobbed by his teammates. You also see it's a very iconic shot as well, where he looks into the camera and kind of nods. Like they've used that in commercials over and over again. As he's getting mobbed by his teammates, then he has a moment to look up and look directly at the TV camera and just kind of like nod, like, "Yep, I did that. This is it. We did that." But an awesome moment. Better that it happens both times in front of the Portland crowd as well, because they just go absolutely nuts both times. It's super, super cool. But anyways, the Thunder leaving the floor. Lillard circles the court, high fives fans. The crowd chants MVP. Damian Lillard says it was a great feeling when it left my hands. It felt good. Some other stats in this game. Lillard has 10 3-pointers in this game. That breaks the Portland franchise record. And he ends up with 50 points in the game, 34 points in the first half. And then, as I said, the Thunder were pretty yappy throughout the series. And Paul George, after this shot, this is I don't know. I'll let you decide, Jason, what you think of this. If this is a good quote or a bad quote from one Paul George. So he says, quote, "That's a bad shot. That's a bad shot. I don't care what anybody says. That's a bad shot. But hey, he made it. That story won't be told that it was a bad shot. We live with that."
Seems a little sour grapes.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that's like...
I mean... It was a pretty, like, the thing is, I mean, George definitely, obviously he was tracking him, but he wasn't like, there was definitely some space there that Lillard was able to create because George probably wasn't quite as close to him as, he ideally would have been. I mean, obviously he was afraid of him driving. So I can see where, if he's thinking at that point, well, this is a bad shot, he won't take it from here. Then that was obviously a mistake. And right, this is just a couple years ago now, but we're still, I think the mentality in the league has changed over the past 2 or 3 years about, extending the range. Obviously Steph being a big part of that, and Lillard both being a big part of that, about like, hey, these guys are now starting to take like even deeper 3-pointers, more routinely. And so, I mean, it's not a bad shot if you can make it, a decent percentage of the time. And, Lillard and Steph and Trae Young and those guys, are able to do that.
I don't have I would say, I don't have the exact name of the guy, but there's a quote of a Portland trainer saying that before the game and throughout this entire series, Lillard was taking shots from 35 feet just to see, like, hey, can I do this? And little by little, he started getting better and better at him. So every day he'd come to the arena and he'd take these 35 footers. And this, the trainer says, man, one of these is going to happen and you're going to make this shot. And Damon's like, yeah, maybe, man. I'm hitting them like pretty easily. And maybe in, 2015 it would have been kind of ridiculous, but I feel like in 2019, I mean, how many times we see Steph Curry pull up from like the logo and make shots by 2019? Like we had already seen that quite a few times. So yeah, it's a bad shot in like, for like me to do. Like, I don't think certain players, but I think at this time, Damian Lillard and Steph Curry and some of your other guys have sort of established that it's not as bad as you would think for them. And I mean, Paul George, I mean, he doesn't need to really say it because he did great defense. He could just say, hey, I defended that as well as you can defend the shot, and he still made it. So you know what? Whatever. Yeah. I think that's a way better way to say it than like, that's a bad shot, because it's not really a bad shot for someone like Damian Lillard, who makes shots from that distance, semi-frequently. So
sure. Yeah. No, it's interesting because it kind of like, it's just really Paul George is kind of it kind of cemented, like Paul George has had an interesting relationship with the playoffs because he's had some really big moments where he's done really well, and then he's had some major moments of disappointment, and then he kind of got that playoff P reputation, and then when he did the disappointing times, then people kind of made fun of him for being playoff P, and then saying something like this also adds to like, oh yeah, playoff P, ha ha ha. of course, the playoffs that are happening right now, he's going the other way and playing really well and, advancing the Clippers to the conference finals for the first time. So, but yeah, this is just sort of like Paul George just kind of says things sometimes and you just kind of be like, yeah, okay, you take it in stride and be whatever. But it is kind of interesting. And yeah, this moment basically ended Russell Westbrook's career on the Thunder and sent, Paul George sent packing, of course, thanks to, 5 draft picks being offered by the Clippers in as a way of getting Kawhi Leonard. But in a way, this basically ended, this era of the Thunder franchise.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So like by 2019, 2020, or 2019, 2020, which seems like it was 19 years ago, but was actually just last year. That team would win 44 games, but they would do so without Paul George or Russell Westbrook. That year's Thunder's team obviously would be led by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, and Chris Paul. So very, very different team there. But it was over for that. It was like, all right, this isn't going to work. Like, Westbrook, you're gone. George, you're gone. We're rebuilding after years and years and years of it. Felt like the Thunder were anti-rebuild, and we're just like, no. We're just going to keep going with this unit. We're going to keep kind of adding pieces. Dame time killed them, man. They were done. And then, obviously the Thunder have set themselves up for, a very good future. But this was the last moment, the last hurrah of, really, you could say the last moment of that first Oklahoma City Thunder, dynasty run, whatever you want to call it, with Kevin Durant. And really, I mean, honestly, you can date it back to Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook, and making that finals. It's a very young team against the LeBron's Miami Heat or whatever. And this is the final moment, and it's really that shot that they're just like, all right, fuck it, we're done. Like, it's over. It's just we're done. We gotta move on. We gotta do something different. So when he waves goodbye, little does he know, he almost quite literally waves goodbye to that franchise being good for the next 4 or 5 years. But hey, they ended up being good in 2019, 2020.
Well, that's true. They did have one more year, with obviously Chris Paul, Danilo Gallinari, SGA. They definitely. But now they're, of course, rebuilding. But yeah, it definitely, like I said, it was definitely a swan song for an era, absolutely. And what an interesting moment there. Something that I think, if it's not iconic now, is going to be one of those iconic things that sort of lives on for a long time.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. And a really cool moment. And again, like I said, it's just awesome that it happens, in Portland both times. Because that's always a little bit of a bummer when you hit that game-winning shot on the road. I mean, it's cool, too, because you can do, the guys running to the tunnel and the fans getting all upset. But there's something special about just, that shot goes in and just,
obviously the energy is completely different. It's obviously more exciting when it happens at home and everyone's happy. That feels better in some way. If you're neutral about the game, if you don't have any stakes in there, that definitely feels better when it's in front of the home crowd. But all right, cool. Well, this is part 1. We'll put a pin in this one, and we will come back soon, and we will talk about some of the series clinching buzzer beaters in the later rounds of the playoffs. So thanks everyone for checking us out. You can find us at the Step Back at fansided.com. You can also find us all of our shows if you go to overandbacknba.com. You can. We would love it if you would leave us a rating and review. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms, and if there's one that you love and you want us to be on there, we will definitely work on getting added to there. You can send us any feedback you want to. We're on Twitter and Facebook. Both of those are at overandbacknba. So thanks for listening, and we will be back soon.